Today's video is about an old roll of Kodak Gold, which I recently got developed and scanned, and I want to show it to you because it has a little story to it, which I think is quite funny. The story behind this roll of Kodak Gold starts in January or February this year. I had bought a couple rolls of Kodak Gold and wanted to use one of them in my Olympus XA3. My intention was to bring this camera along to mundane activities such as grocery shopping and shoot some casual photographs to document everyday life. So that's what I did for about 2 weeks, until one day my dad, brother, sister and I went on a day trip into the mountains to go skiing. I brought the camera along hoping to get some photos of the trip, and during that day I found that the camera wasn't working quite right at times. Usually, when you advance the film by turning the wheel, this knob here turns as well because you're pulling the film out of the canister, which turns this knob. So I like to keep an eye on that to make sure that I'm not shooting a blank roll of film. The issue was that I noticed that the knob was not turning. Seeing as I was already skeptical of the film's advancing because I had some difficulties feeding the film to the camera at the start, I was worried that I was wasting a roll of film and decided to stop shooting, wind the film back into its canister and continue shooting it in the Pentax K1000. Due to my insufficient thought process of this transfer, I mistakenly winded the film back into its canister completely, so that I couldn't access it anymore. After some research, I found out that it's actually fairly easy to retrieve the film again with either a tool specifically for this occasion or simply with a piece of double-sided tape. What happened then was that I put the film in the fridge, thinking that I'd get it out sometime soon again to continue shooting. However, instead, I forgot it for a few months and finally got it out again in May. As I got it out, I managed to get the tip of the film out of its canister again and put it into the Pentax. I then shot 10 photos in the darkness to advance the film up to the point where I thought that I had shot with the Olympus, and from there on I shot the rest with the Pentax. So, this roll of Kodak Gold is a collection of a mixture of memories. Some from winter, some from recently, and that is what I want to show you in this video. So we're starting off with this photo, which, as mentioned, is from grocery shopping. I had taken it with me and we came into this garage. It was so empty for some reason. I don't remember why it was empty, but it was quite unusual that it's so empty and I thought it just looked really cool. So I wanted to get a photo of it. Sadly, the photo didn't really turn out very nicely. I think it could need some more exposure because the sides are just way too dark, and I think if it would have gotten more light, it would have been better, or maybe just the camera's lens is not very good, I don't know. And also I missed focus. The Olympus has zone focusing and I sometimes just forget to set it to infinity, and this was probably set to portrait mode or something. So that's why it's not really sharp. So yeah, quite a fail with this first photo. Then here's the second photo, and this one turned out to be a very soft photo, but I think it actually looks really cool. It gives that lit up part a sort of hazy look, and I think it's quite fitting actually. And overall, I like the composition a lot. I actually quite like how it turned out. Moving on to the next photo, this is just a simple casual selfie of Melly and I as we were brushing our teeth. Again, I seem to have missed focus. It's unsharp, but I think that's kind of part of it. It's really cool. It gives this photo this amateur aesthetic. Because we're unsharp, it just emphasizes this amateurish feel to it, and you do still see what is going on. And so actually I quite like it. And also it's so dirty, the photo, which also just adds to this amateurish look. So all of this comes together to a rather fitting photo, I would say. It's bad, but it's also kind of cool. Then this is from that ski day I was talking about. We were out in the mountains. There was so much beautiful snow, and so of course I had to get a photo of it. This photo sadly got a little underexposed, I think, because the Olympus is an auto exposure point and shoot camera, and you know snow is really bright because it's all white, and so I think the camera was thinking, oh, it's so bright, I need to really expose darkly. And so the photo didn't really get so much light. I more or less fixed the vignetting, but you do still see a lot of it, and that overall the photo is a bit mushy. And I think if it would have gotten more light, the photo just would be overall a bit more clear. Oh, and then there's this photo. So as I told you, I took the roll out of the Olympus after about 10 shots. I was pretty sure that it was 10 shots. And later, 2 months later, put it into the Pentax. I shot 10 shots with the Pentax because I was assuming now I should be on a fresh frame, on frame 11, and shoot a photo. And as you can see, I somehow miscalculated the whole thing. And this is the first and also only overlapping frame. So the photo on the right is still from winter, and the photo on the left is from some time in, I think this was in May. So the result is a beautiful double exposure. So this was a golden hour, and so I was really tempted to shoot some photos. And this one came out beautifully, I think. I like the colors, I like the lighting. I missed focus, as you can see. I focused for infinity, I believe, and that's why the buildings at the back are sharp, but Melly and Joseph are not. But I think it's still a decent photo, actually. Here's another photo from that trip. We're still at the same bridge, and we were just taking a little rest here, and there were some steps going up to a terrace, and so I was standing on that terrace getting this photo from a higher angle, which I think actually looks pretty cool. Then, this photo is not from that trip anymore. This was back home again, and I remember I was on the way to shoot this thumbnail for my video about the renaissance of analog photography. I just wanted to walk around in the neighborhood and find a good spot where I could shoot that photo. And on the way, I just walked here and thought, wow, this is beautiful. And I had brought, obviously, the Pentax with me, which is in the thumbnail. And so I still had that roll of Kodak Gold loaded in it. And so I set the Pentax up on the tripod and got this photo. I exposed for the shadows, and I seemingly exposed so much for the shadows that there's no detail left in the sky, sadly. But it still looks good, in my opinion. Jumping forward in time again, this was a couple weeks after that previous photo, on an evening when Joseph and Ahmed, two friends of mine who also love to shoot film, just called me in the evening and asked if I want to go on a spontaneous photo walk, and so we did. The shooting conditions were amazing because it had rained all day, if I remember correctly. At least you can see the road was wet, and by now it wasn't raining anymore and the sun was setting. So the light was soft, it was getting dark, and the road was still wet, and so that car approaching there has this beautiful reflection on the ground. I just wanted to get a photo of this road with that nice tree on the right side. I don't know if the tree actually is part of the composition so much now, but as I was taking this photo, I was thinking, oh, that tree's really cool, and I'll include the road. And then that car came, and I thought, oh, I could have the car in the photo as well. And that's how this photo came together, and I really like it. I think it turned out very nicely. Then we walked down that road in the photograph and came to this building where we found this somewhat sad looking playground. It's so small and it has this one toy in it. It just looks a little sad and lonely, and but we thought that would make for an interesting photo. So we took our time, found our composition, and waited for all the cars to pass, because you have to know, where I was standing behind the camera was just in the middle of the road. So we had to wait for all the cars to pass, and every now and then we'd set up the composition, and then there was the next car coming and we had to escape from the road. Let's continue with the next photo. This is just around the corner, as you can see on the left side. That's what we just photographed, and I asked Joseph to stand as a model in the middle of this composition because I really thought it could be cool with those lights from the top and the subframe, and overall I'm really satisfied with the composition. I think it worked pretty much the way I had imagined it. I really enjoy the focus on the middle on him because the lights are in the middle, but still, because it hadn't become really dark yet and we were like in the transition between golden hour and blue hour, we did still have enough light that the building itself is still lit up. Then, slowly but surely, it was getting dark and we went on to the next road, and I came across this scene here. And I really liked that the road was lit up already from all the lamps, but in the background the sky hadn't gone completely dark yet. We still had these clouds, and behind them this slightly lit up sky. The photo sadly didn't turn out so good, I think. I don't know, it's just overall not sharp enough. I think I should have just stopped down to f8 or something. Then this next shot is one of my favorite shots from this session. We were walking on that same road. We had found a new direction to walk towards, and we walked past this restaurant, and at the back of the restaurant where the kitchen is was this space, and this light was coming through from the kitchen. So by now it was pretty dark already, and the light was coming through from the kitchen, lighting up the scene, but just minimally, especially that wall was lit up, and I thought it was super aesthetic. So I set up the camera, a 1 second exposure, hoping that enough light would come in, and I think it worked beautifully. It's a really moody scene and it looks somewhat dramatic, and yeah, I think it's a beautiful shot. Then this next photo is still from that same evening, and we found this entrance to an underground garage. And so I suddenly saw this potential for a somewhat symmetrical composition, meaning with the subframe of the garage and with Joseph and Armin standing in there. And so that's what we did, and this is what I got, and I'm really happy with it. I think it's a really cool shot. It worked nicely, the composition is cool, and the lighting worked out. It's nice and bright in there, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. Then let's continue to the next photo. This was at an apartment building, and I just liked how there was this light at the entrance and this light at the garage, and how they were just both together building this scene of interesting artificial lights. And so I set up this composition and just saw some potential in it, got my shot, and I'm quite satisfied with it. I'm not sure about the composition. I think the light to the left has this empty space there, which somehow could have somebody or something there that would be the subject of the photo. Right now, the photo is just a tad bit aimless. It's a nice scene, I think, but overall it kind of misses the subject maybe, I'm not sure. Then, a little later, we came across another underground garage. I think it turned out quite okay. The shot is not so very clean, but I think in this case it's actually quite okay. It kind of fits the scene, but again, I'm kind of missing a subject here. You could have something just standing in the middle of it, but maybe that would be a bit too boring. Anyway, let's move on to the next shot. Ooh, this photo is possibly my favorite from the whole roll. This was on my way home from that evening shoot, and I took this really old train home. I don't know how old it is, but it does, just the overall aesthetic does look quite old, and I just really liked the aesthetic, and also how empty it was. I believe this was maybe the last train of the evening or the one before last, and so at this time there was just not much going on anymore, and so the train was empty. So I got this shot, and it's beautiful. The big light at the top really has this cinematic quality to it. And the composition is, I mean, it's very simple. It's just center frame, but it's just so satisfying because it's got this leading lines through the middle, and you see that yellow door at the back, which also is just a beautiful color. And just the emptiness of this train really gives it something unique, I think. Also, what I find quite satisfying is that you can't really see out of the windows because it was just dark outside. So you really just don't have any distractions outside of the train. You're really sucked into the train, into this scene. And I really like this photo. I'm pretty sure this is my favorite of the roll. Then this is the one before last photo. The last two photos of this roll I shot a friend of mine. First I got a nice little portrait of her, and I think just the sunlight and the overall mood is beautiful here. I really like the clear line of the shadow going through the room, and that she is positioned inside of that light frame with the light coming right into her face. I think it's a very cool portrait. And then finally, this is the last photo. This is a portrait and self-portrait in one, I guess, a little mirror photo. There's not much to say about it. I think it's a decent photo, but nothing special. It's a little messy, but still kind of cool. I like the plant. The plant has this beautiful green color. It doesn't really add so much to the composition, but it does kind of fill the empty space on the right side. So I don't really know what to think of the photo, but I think it's cool. But I don't know, it hasn't really caught me, the photo. It's not one of my favorites for some reason. I can't really explain it. But yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments if maybe you do like this shot a lot. I think that's the last, is it? Yeah. So as usual, if you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments. I'm curious to know which you personally like the most, because now looking through all of them again, I am a big fan of that train photo. That's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this was in any way entertaining, and I'll see you again next week in the next video. Until then, goodbye.